pick and prevail in your fantasy football league with the help of our starting lineup. At host to quarterback the show, we have Nick Giacobbe. Up next, a dual threat in Dynasty and Daily Fantasy, we have Cody Repass. And finally, working the waiver wire, we have Nick Cap. These are your playmakers that will provide you with sleepers, breakouts, and busts to help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome everybody to episode 28 of the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, in the hopes that we help you prevail in Week 14 and the rest of the 2021 fantasy football season. I am your host, Nick Giacobbe, and joining me is Nick Cap. Nick, how was your Week 13, and how are we looking heading into the last week of the regular season in the fantasy football season?
I had a massive week this week, points-wise, and one of those awful schedules that you never want to see. I had a league where I scored 180 and I lost with a one flex. Team went off like crazy. And I think the next closest person in the league scored 135, except for my opponent. I'm in a league, 12-person league with 4 people. I had a big win, and I'm going to probably miss the playoffs at 9-5.
How do you miss the playoffs with 9 wins? How many teams make the playoffs?
4 teams make it.
That's stupid. 14 playoffs are stupid.
It's
dumb. That's 4 out of 8 or 10?
12-person.
Only 4 teams make the playoffs in a 12. I wouldn't play in that league, honestly.
It's an extremely high buy-in league. It's meant to be like that, but
that's lame. I don't like it.
Yeah, it is what it is.
So you're in what, 6 leagues, right? 6 leagues total.
6
How
leagues.
many are?
Only one I'm definitely not making the playoffs in. One I need to win, and I need 2 other losses in the league. The rest of them I'm locked in.
Okay, there you go. So 4 out of 6, not too shabby. I had a pretty good week 13. I had a pretty good football week all around. For fantasy wise, I went 4 for 4. Believe it was the highest score in our league. I caught up in the points. I'm right behind Jake now, about 20 points behind. Still number 1 in points against, but I'm only 20 points behind in the points for. So I got a pretty big win this week that was much needed after last week. I lost by 0.2 on a stat correction 2 days later. So that was pretty heartbreaking. So I'm second in points right now. And I need to win this week, or I need 1 or 2 people to lose. So we got to see what happens. I'll either be in the playoffs or I won't. I should be in the running at least for most points, so I could win some money in that one. Other 3 leagues, I am locked into 2 other leagues. I'm the number 1 points and record in a 12-man league, and in my other 12-man league, I'm tied for the second best record, and I think I'm in 3rd place. So I'm locked into the 2 12-mans. Then in my Dynasty League, my record, I think, is 7-6 or something like that. It's not a great team at all. I think I'm middle of the pack. I think I'm 6th in points or something like that. I mean, I lost J.K. Dobbins before the season. Amari Cooper was out for a couple weeks. Tyreek Hill has underperformed. Russell Wilson was out. And I didn't draft well in the later end, but that's okay. I think if I win, I think I might already be locked into a playoff spot, depending on tiebreakers. Definitely should. Well, I'm not going to win this week. I'm facing the best team, but hopefully I have the tiebreakers and I could go 4 for 4 in the into the playoffs. Also had a good week in my spread pool. I was actually number 1 in the spread in the picks this week, so I did win some money there, and I'm still number 1 overall. And my Seahawks won. We finally won a game, and not just won a game, but it was a fun Seahawks game to watch, besides the horrendous plays by Gerald Everett on the half-inch line, because Seahawks and 1-yard line is always a ton of fun. But
oh yeah,
good football week. We're going into week 14, and my Seahawks have the Texans, so they should get a win. Spread pool hopefully looks good,
sure.
And big fantasy week. Big fantasy week. Last week of the regular season, so that's why we kind of waited on our show. We didn't do a waiver wire segment, but there wasn't many people to pick up, honestly. So we won't have a waiver wire segment this week, but we do have a weekly recap of week 13. We have lock flop. We have rapid fire. We have news. We're going to do everything we can to get you ready for week 14 to get you into those playoffs. So before we do all that, if this is your first time watching or listening, thank you so much and welcome to the show. We do the show every single Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. It's going to be live on Sundays. The time does fluctuate for the Tuesdays and Friday show. The audio version can be found on every podcasting platform, including but not limited to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. If you are on iTunes/Apple, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. It does go a long way. If you would rather watch the show and listen to it, go to our YouTube channel, Primetime Fantasy Podcast. If you want to follow us on social media, and please do, it's Facebook and YouTube Primetime Fantasy Podcast, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, PrimeTimeFFPod. For the Sunday shows, we are live on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. The time does fluctuate. Nick knows I have, something I got to do on Sunday that I do like once a month or whatever. So I think we're going to do an early show. I don't know, probably what we did last week, 8:30. We haven't set a time yet. Do you just want to set one now? What are we thinking here? Something early.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about
it. So we'll tweet it out. It's going to be something early. But we'll assume 8:30. We'll post something on Saturday.
Yeah.
And aside from that, we're going to be live on the Colorcast app again this Sunday. We haven't confirmed this. I believe we're going to do the Sunday Night Football game again. We're going to do Packers and the Bears. We did last week. We did the Chiefs and the Broncos. We had a bunch of you join us. It was a lot of fun. So thank you so much to those that did. And it's a cool app. It's only on iPhone, unfortunately. So iPhone, iPad, only on Apple devices. But you download the app and it's an audio-only stream. So you can watch the game. Don't have to worry about watching us, but watch the game and listen to us commentate it. It's a mix of play-by-play and just a mix of just talking. We'll talk football. We'll talk fantasy football. We'll talk about what we're eating or drinking. And the cool part is not only can you join the chat, but you could actually press the hot seat button. We could put you in the hot seat for as long as you want. You could ask us questions. You could talk. Think of like a live radio show like you're calling. It's like the WFAN. So app is called Colorcast. The game we're commentating is Sunday night football, Bears, Packers. So please join us for that. It would actually mean a lot if you guys did tune in. Big opportunity for us that we could end up getting. Could be a job opportunity. So it would be huge if you guys did support that. Thank you so much. All right. That's all the plugs we have for you guys. Let's get into segment 1. We got the injury news and updates from week 13. So I'm going to kick things off. First injury. Let's talk about Logan Thomas. His initial MRI was an ACL/MCL. I think they're both torn. The MRI actually came back promising. I believe it's the ACL is not torn. However, he's still on IR for the second time, ending his season. So Ricky Seals-Jones will take over for him. And Nick, I think the biggest loss here is that Logan Thomas kind of proved to be injury prone this season. I think it was 2 different injuries, 3 really. And the bummer part is that he was projected to be like a top 10 tight end on the season. And I believe he was in terms of average. I'm actually going to pull up the average right now for tight ends just so I can kind of see where he is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. No, he didn't even, he didn't really crack the top 10, but he also only played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He only played 6 games, and one of them he got a goose egg for in the Atlanta game. I think he might have gotten hurt without getting a point, so I think that probably hurts his point total. But of his other 5 games, 12, 9.5, 12, 6, 13. Those are pretty good numbers for a tight end, basically averaging 11, 10 fantasy points for a tight end that you probably drafted in rounds 8, 9. Pretty good numbers, but honestly, I think it's a bummer. I think it's a bummer that a guy that a lot of people are high on and his season wasn't a bad season because of the talent on the field, but because of injuries, and that's something that you never hope for. But I think Ricky Seals-Jones should be now rostered in all fantasy leagues, and he's going to be a very suitable replacement. So, Nick, your thoughts on the fact that Logan Thomas' season is now officially over?
So the reason why he got hurt this bad and this often was because he's a quarterback converted to a tight end. So he went most of his high school, early college life not getting hit. And then when you get to the NFL and you're a tight end and you're blocking and you're getting hit consistently, it's going to wear and tear. Logan Thomas is a phenomenal talent. Don't get anything wrong about that. But the ability to not take a hit and stuff like that, it wears on his body like it wouldn't a normal tight end or someone that went through a system like that just because of your training. So it sucks that he's got the injuries and all that. But for me, Logan Thomas is still a ridiculously talented tight end.
Yeah. All right. We have a lot of injuries to cover, guys. We don't like this in week 13, but not all the injury news is bad, though. Alvin Kamara is expected to practice this week and could play against the worst rushing defense in the NFL, the New York Jets. He has missed the last 4 games due to a knee injury. If he plays, he's in your lineup for sure. I'm not worried about the injury at all. Are you worried at all about this injury and coming back?
No.
No. Mark Ingram is on the COVID list. We have no idea if he's been vaccinated or not. Didn't get that news, so he may miss that Jets game. Taysom Hill, his injury that we've talked about is a torn ligament in his finger. I believe it's a top ligament. And according to Sean Payton, it quote unquote couldn't get any worse, but he's still playing. Like Russell Wilson didn't play.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really understand this comment if it can't get much worse. And we're going to talk about it in our weekly wrap. But Taysom Hill was a top 6 fantasy quarterback last week. So, yeah, that's kind of weird. It can't get much worse, but he's still playing. I feel like it could get just a tiny bit worse, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, Sean. Corey Davis is on the IR, season over. It's a core muscle surgery. Nick, do you have any other update on this? Like, what does that even mean?
I didn't look too much into the detail. All I know is that there's been a lot of buzz from Jets Nation about Denzel Mims, a 2nd-round pick last year, that hasn't gotten too much playing time. And all I know is that the Jets were very adamant about putting him in Corey Davis's role. Elijah Moore will still be the.
But then why even sign Corey Davis in the first place? Then they don't want to cut you off, but they draft.
They wanted a veteran on offense. They didn't think Crowder was good enough.
Didn't they give him a good amount of money though?
Early injuries too.
I thought they gave him a good amount of money though, Corey Davis.
Yeah, they gave him a couple years. So I mean, he's a talented receiver. Don't get me wrong.
He's not a number one though, and that's the biggest issue that I think we learned with him is that he's not a number one. So as many targets and looks that he's going to get, he's not a number one. So I think I don't want to call him a bust because he was drafted so late. I would put him as a flop though. And that's the word I'd use to describe it. He was a flop on the season. Elijah Moore's questionable with a leg injury. Just to be clear, we're recording on Wednesday, December 8th. Show comes out December 10th. By the way, happy birthday to my brother Matt. I know he's not listening, but happy birthday to him. So he's questionable with a leg injury, so we'll get more updates throughout the week. I don't want to cover all the Vikings injuries because they're playing on Thursday night, and this show comes out after Thursday night, but I do want to cover this. Adam Thielen went out early in the game, scored a goose egg in fantasy with a high ankle sprain, missed most of the game. Mike Zimmer said he will definitely return at some point this season. He's not having surgery. I think that's a pretty big loss for fantasy owners because I think he's a pretty boomable guy. He's a pretty touchdown-reliant guy. I think he has like 8 touchdowns on the season or 9 touchdowns. That's a guy you're slotting in your flex spot just about every week, hoping to get that 12 fantasy points. That's a guy now that's riding your bench. And if he does return, maybe he's returning for a fantasy championship, maybe the week before. I'm guessing the high ankle sprain is going to put him at least 3 weeks, but he's not on IR yet. But maybe is the IR at this point end of the season injuries? I'm not sure about that one.
No, so it would be if they hit the IR now, they're gone 14, 15, 16. So you get
yeah. So I
only
guess
one more fantasy playoff game if he did hit the IR, which would be the championship.
Anyway, so yeah, he's not on the IR yet, but we'll see where that goes. Deebo Samuel, number 2 fantasy wide receiver on the year, I think, in terms of average at least. Kyle Shanahan said he's hoping to have him back this week. He had a groin injury and missed last game. That'd be pretty huge for fantasy owners that do need that win to get into the playoffs. Also with the 49ers, Elijah Mitchell's in concussion protocol. I guess he got a concussion during the Seahawks game. I don't remember him going out, though. I think he finished the game. Also had an MRI on his knee that Shanahan said showed irritation. Don't know what that one means. Seems like an out for Kyle Shanahan to use like Juszczyk or Trey Sermon or something like that. But Elijah Mitchell's been possibly the waiver pickup of the year. He's been averaging like 14, 15 fantasy points. It's a running back you would draft in rounds like 3 or 4, and that's a guy who drafted off the waivers. So pretty good waiver pickup. And Nick, if you want to jump in on any of these injuries, I'm just kind of updating everybody. But if you ever want to jump in, I'm giving you the chance to. You could always cut me off. Yep. Keenan Allen's on the COVID list. He got put on Monday, but he is vaccinated, so he does have a chance to play Sunday if he does test negative twice. But I believe I saw something today that he wasn't feeling well, so maybe he is having symptoms. Also, Mike Williams was put on the COVID list today. No idea if he's vaccinated or not. So the Chargers could be in trouble. Who's the receiver that got a ton of targets last week? It was Guyton. All right, so go pick up Guyton if you can, if he's still on your waiver wire. I should go do that when Nick's talking. Darren Waller's honestly, like today's Wednesday. My day was so busy, guys. Like I haven't even checked who I got off the waiver wire this week. I haven't looked at any of my fantasy apps. So Darren Waller is hopeful to play against Kansas City. Missed last week due to a knee injury. That'd be huge for the Raiders that are playing against a Kansas City team that is gelling at the right time. And I believe Kansas City's let up a lot of points to tight ends. I could be wrong. Let's see. Yeah, they've given up the 6th most points to tight ends, so that'd be pretty huge. Daniel Jones has a neck injury. We talked about this over the last few weeks, but after seeing a couple specialists, I believe he's unlikely to play on Sunday. I think Mike Glennon's hurt also because I saw that Jake Fromm is likely to start, which is hilarious. I forget who the Giants reverse. Who are the Giants face? The Chargers. Yeah, pick up the Chargers defense. Go pick up the Chargers defense right now. When Nick's talking, I'm going to go check on my waiver wires.
I got the Chargers defense starting this week, so I'm already set there.
In which league? In ours?
In a league I have playoffs locked up in. Okay. So this is ironic. Not to get too much off topic, but I'm in a league where it's 3 wide receiver, 1 flex. My lineup is locked in every week. There's pretty much no negotiation for who's going out on my field. It's Brady at quarterback, Godwin, Justin Jefferson, Amari Cooper, Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, George Kittle, Michael Pittman, and then when Michael Carter gets back, that's the rotational guy based on matchup. So I dropped everybody on my bench because I didn't plan on starting them, and I hoarded defenses. So I have the Chargers defense, Colts defense, Ravens defense, Minnesota's defense, Philly's defense, and San Francisco's defense, and I'm just holding them for the playoffs so I don't have to go up against them.
Oh, I have the Saints D and the Cardinals D in our league, but the Chargers are on the waiver wire. I don't want to drop the Cardinals D because they have Detroit in week 15.
Saints at the Jets, though. I would just play the Saints at the Jets.
Yeah,
Saints have been a good defense all year long.
Yeah, that's the play. That's the play. But I do want to see is Guyton still available? I kind of want to pick up Guyton if he's there. He is there. All right, let me pick up Guyton right now. Live on the air, guys. This is good radio. Melvin Gordon is expected to practice this week, according to Vic Fangio. No. This is one we want to talk about here. Because Javonte Williams had a coming out party. He had like 20 fantasy points before the touchdown. He ended with 29.
I'm not one to brag, but I did tell people play him over Stephon Diggs.
You did, and you were right on that. You were right. You're allowed to brag on that one. Yeah, you get bragging rights on that one. Javonte Williams is going to be the starter next year, I'm assuming. So that's why it frustrates me that now I'm sitting here like, now we got to play the Melvin Gordon game again. I can't really start Javonte Williams with confidence, and I have to start him in a couple leagues because guess who has Jonathan Taylor in 1, 2, 3, 4 fantasy leagues? Guess who has Javonte Williams in 1, 2, 3, 4 fantasy leagues? Guess who is now starting Javonte Williams in 1, 2, 3, 4 fantasy leagues? Can Melvin Gordon, I don't wish injuries. I don't, but can Vic Fangio just be like, hey, Melvin, you're a vet. Let's rest you this week. Javante's got it. All right. Kenyon Drake, ankle injury. He's out for the season, or ankle surgery out for the season. Nick, how does it affect Josh Jacobs a bit? Because that's a guy that I think we haven't really been too high on.
Yeah, Jacobs has actually been pretty solid this year. I feel like me and Nick have always kind of been low on him because we're very big on running backs that have a passing threat in any sort of PPR leagues. But Jacobs has been pretty solid this year over the last 5, or actually over the entire season. 17, 10, 17, 15, 16, 14, 9, 12, 19, 24, averaging 15 points per game. That's really solid for a running back. He's a low-end RB2 at the moment, but he also missed 2 games this year, so that number would be up a little bit more at least. I assume he'd be a high-end RB2. Jacobs has been solid, and Drake not being there. I know that there's another guy that they filtered in when Jacobs was hurt. But, I mean, it doesn't really hurt. It's not going to hurt Jacobs. Jacobs is going to be out there a couple more snaps a game at least.
Yeah, I don't think that Jacobs has been the problem with this team. The injuries is what's been hurting him, but aside from that, he's been pretty solid when he's been on the field. Speaking of field and Fields, Justin Fields is starting. Matt Nagy said today that he was starting, and maybe I was tired from last night. Maybe this actually didn't happen, but seems like he's starting, which shocks me because the whole offense is built around Andy Dalton. So Nick, does this shock you at all? Like against the Packers on Sunday night, coming off the injury, like what do you think he's thinking here?
Coaching. This is bad coaching.
Matt Nagy's a terrible coach. Like we know
this is bad coaching. Every single time that they've given Justin Fields the opportunity, it was against the Rams and against the Packers. That's when they decided to logically say, let's go play Justin Fields. This is horrendous coaching. This is going to injure your young quarterback. Be extremely cautious. It has no fantasy implications unless if you own David Montgomery or Darnell Mooney. That's it. That's it. Fields is not startable against Green Bay. I'm playing Green Bay's defense as well in other leagues.
Yeah. Yeah, it's horrible. Are they going up to Lambeau too? They are. They're playing in Lambeau. What a mess you are, Matt Nagy. What a mess he is. Just the worst coach in the league. Just the worst. All right. Let's go to weekly wrap. Studs and duds from week 13. Start off with quarterbacks. First game back and for is this first game back or second game back for Kyler?
First game
back in first place, averaging the most fantasy points among quarterbacks. Kyler Murray 30.8 points. Quarterback 3, Justin Herbert 25.2. Quarterback 5, Zach Wilson with 21. Quarterback 6, Tyreek Hill Taysom. Guys, we're recording at like 10:30 at night on Wednesday. Taysom Hill, 20.6. Quarterback 7, Kirk Cousins, 20.6. I threw Kirk in there because I believe Kirk was my lock last week. I'm pretty sure I said to play Kirk. That's why I threw him in there. So, Nick, who's your biggest quarterback stud of the week?
I don't think I need to say this because I've said it for long enough. Kyler Murray is matchup proof. He came off an injury and lit it up again. No problem. Chicago's defense has been pretty decent this year. They're not great against quarterbacks, but they're pretty good at holding a pocket. So the fact that Kyler Murray was able to deliver again with a 4-touchdown game, 2 passing, 2 rushing, 60 yards on the ground, he's phenomenal.
I'll say Herbert because Herbert went up against a pretty good Cincy D and was top 3 in scoring. He's had a pretty successful fantasy season. He's a guy that I think I was a little bit lower on. He did start pretty slow, but then he picked it up for a couple of those weeks. In terms of averages, Herbert's number 4. It's Kyler, Brady, Allen, and Herbert. I had Allen finishing at number 1, so my prediction is not terribly off. I think Nick had Kyler, so Nick's spot on here. And then in terms of total fantasy points, Herbert's number 3. So Herbert's had a pretty damn great season and played very well against that Cincy defense. But again, shout out to Kirk Cousins, who I did say was going to be a top 10 quarterback on the week.
Someone I just want to quickly, before we brush over him.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill. The fact that he finished as a top 6 quarterback after throwing 4 interceptions shows you why he's not matchup proof, but why he's able to be started, even though he's not the most talented quarterback. My favorite meme going around is that Taysom Hill is a 13-year-old playing Madden with Lamar Jackson. That is exactly the best way that you could describe Taysom Hill's game. And I mean, that's how he plays and it puts up numbers. So Taysom Hill's startable based on matchup and going up against the Jets this week. Not a bad play at all.
For me, my Anyway, duds of the week, quarterbacks. Quarterback 17, Patrick Mahomes, 12.5 points. Quarterback 22, Josh Allen, 11.7. Quarterback 23, Dak Prescott, 11.2. Who's your biggest quarterback dud of the week, Nick?
Mine's going to be someone that we didn't just mention. He didn't have a bad week, but it's because I want to kind of shed a little light on someone that's had recent struggles over his last 4 games. It's Joe Burrow. In his last 4 games, he's gone 8 points, 9 points, 16, 16. That is not startable going into the fantasy playoffs. And in the fantasy playoffs, he's got to go up against Denver, who's been phenomenal against quarterbacks. Baltimore, who hasn't been great, but Baltimore has always given Burrow a little bit of a challenge. I think that he played one really good game against Baltimore earlier this year, but with his recent struggles, I'm not starting him against John Harbaugh the second game of the season. And then if you have to play him in the championship, was going up against Kansas City, who, whether people want to believe it or not, is a phenomenal defense at this point in the season. So, in my opinion, you can drop Joe Burrow.
That's bold. Obviously, not talking about keeper leagues or anything like that.
Yeah.
Dak, man, Dak was a fantasy machine last year. Nick had him for the first 6 weeks before he got hurt.
5 weeks, and with our bonuses, was averaging close to 40, a little over 40 points per game.
Yeah. In terms of averages, Dak is outside the top 10. He's only at 11. And in terms of total fantasy points, Dak is at number 10. A dud game last week on Thursday Night Football against the Saints. I know the Saints are a tougher defense, but Dak's not the fantasy quarterback that he was last year, and obviously the Cowboys don't want him to be throwing 400 or 500 yards a game because they were losing games last year. The offense is more balanced and they're winning more football games. But from a fantasy perspective, this is a big dud game for Dak, sitting at number 23, especially in a week that you probably did need those fantasy points. On to running backs, we already spoke about Javonte Williams, number 1 on the week. Number 2, David Montgomery, 28.1. Number 4, Josh Jacobs, 24. Number 6, Antonio Gibson, 22.1. And number 8, Alexander Madison, 21.1. Who is your biggest running back stud of the week?
I got to give this guy credit because very early on and throughout the season, we've called him a bust for his ADP. He's performing at his ADP. It's Antonio Gibson. He's the running back 11 right now on the season. He's heated up these past few weeks. Since the bye, he's gone 22, 8, 24, 22. And he has the 5th most rushing yards in the league. Antonio Gibson's going to finish as a low-end RB1, high-end RB2. And his playoff matchups are Dallas, Philly, or the rest of the season is Dallas, Philly, Dallas, Philly. That's not a bad stretch of games for a running back who's shown to be extremely talented. And ever since coming back from the bye week, and once he got healthy, it's been really consistent, finishing at our top 10 running back ever since.
I have a confession to make. I think I said the flop David Montgomery last week. I forget if he was in my flop or if I said it in rapid fire, but going up against a Cardinals defense that has surrendered the 3rd least or 4th least amount of fantasy points to running backs, he went out on the 2nd most fantasy points for running backs. He had 28 fantasy points. He had 90 rushing yards. He had a touchdown. He had 8 receptions for 51 yards, 28 fantasy points, the most of the season that he's had. Tough matchup against Green Bay, but after that, playoff schedule, the Vikings, the Seahawks, and the Giants. The Vikings and Seahawks, I believe, when it comes to running backs, I know the Seahawks are number 2, the Giants are number 6, and the Vikings are number 9. So if you have David Montgomery, last year he won people leagues. He single-handedly won people leagues. He had a stretch of like 5 games at over 25 fantasy points. The Green Bay game is going to be tough, but you get into the playoffs with David Montgomery, I think you have a very favorable schedule, and I think you have a legitimate running back too going into the playoffs.
David Montgomery has the ability to go win someone a championship for where you
I do want to say this too. Alexander Madison does as well, depending on the Dalvin Cook injury. That could be huge too. And Javonte Williams, if they give him the bell cow role, but I don't trust Vic Fangio, especially when the season's kind of lost already. All right, running back duds. Running back 25, Joe Mixon, 9.4. Running back 27, Jamal Williams, 9 points. Running back 33, Myles Gaskin, 6.9. I thought he was better on the odd weeks. I think it was the odd weeks. Maybe it was the even.
He flipped the script when he had those.
Yeah. And running back 34, Ezekiel Elliott, 6.7. Who's your biggest running back bust of the week?
I told you guys to start Jamal Williams. I apologize. Jamal Williams struggled a lot. I think he's more talented than his fantasy game showed. I think he played better than his fantasy game showed. The Lions got a win, and they figured out how to move the ball downfield without using the running back position too much. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a phenomenal talent. I liked him a lot going into the year, and he finally started hitting his stride. But it's too late, now to pick him up and ride with him for the playoffs. But Jamal Williams, he kind of struggled, so he's not matchup proof, and makes sense being on the Lions.
For me, it's going to be Joe Mixon. They face the Chargers defense that has surrendered the 3rd most fantasy points to running backs, and Joe Mixon has been on a bit of a burner as of late. He had a streak of 4 straight weeks over 24 fantasy points. It's pretty hot. So he finally had a cold week, 9.4. The big issue there is no receptions. In those games that he did have 24 fantasy points, he had 4 receptions, 5 receptions, 0, because he had 123 rushing yards, and 4. This week, 0 receptions. The Bengals game was weird. They were down like 20 points, and then they came back, and it was like 22-22, and then they lost by like 15. So weird football game, but a dud week from Joe Mixon. On to the wide receivers. Wide receiver 1, Justin Jefferson, 35.6 points. Deontay Johnson, wide receiver 2, 30.5. Wide receiver 3, Chris Godwin, 30.2. Wide receiver 4, T. Higgins, 28.8. Wide receiver 9, Elijah Moore, 20.9. Who is your biggest wide receiver stud of the week?
There's a point in the season where you have to have some of these conversations. Here's the point we have it. Is Deontay Johnson a top 10 receiver in the NFL?
Probably.
Deontay Johnson has had 1 week under 12 points this year, and he had 11.7. He missed one game this year. Injuries held him back last year. And he's doing this with noodle arm Big Ben. This is exactly why we call why we called Allen Robinson a top 10 receiver. And Deontay Johnson's a better route runner. He doesn't have better hands, but he's just as talented. I think it's about time we start considering Deontay Johnson as a top 10 receiver in this league. And right now, he's a wide receiver 7 on the season.
I had Justin Jefferson and Godwin this week in our league, so I was pretty stoked.
I played him in the league.
I was pretty stoked. The other thing about Deontay Johnson, like the only knock on him last year was he got injured like 3 times.
Yeah.
When he was on the field last year, he was leading in targets, leading in receptions, and he would drop like 4 of them every game. He was the touchdown. He was the red zone favorite. I was low on him this year because of Big Ben, because of having 2 other receivers. We forget Juju was there and Najee. I was low on him just because of that. But yeah, he's kind of proved me wrong. And he's been a guy that I've been high on the last 2 seasons. So I should have had more confidence in a guy that I have liked for a while.
You're going to see at the end of the season, Deontay Johnson's going to have mirror image numbers of Allen Robinson. It's going to be insane when you look at it because
meaning a good season.
Meaning not this season's Allen Robinson, but seasons prior.
Mm-hmm.
Like Allen Robinson last year had 154 targets. Yeah. And that was with Mitchell Trubisky running the quarterback position. Big Ben, he's been on a little bit of a hot streak recently in terms of actual play, but he's not talented enough where he's a threat downfield. So the fact that Deontay Johnson is doing this with Big Ben at this point of his career, like there's rumors about these quarterbacks leaving like Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, and Russell Wilson. If he gets paired with one of those in Pittsburgh, he's going to be a menace for fantasy teams.
Yeah. For me, it's got to be Elijah Moore because I said not to play him last week, so I got to give him his flowers. Elijah Moore in the past 5 weeks, 27, 13, 29, 9, and 20. He had a tough matchup against Philly. Tough matchup this week against New Orleans too, but yeah, the targets have been nuts, like 6, 6, 8, 6, 11, 8, 12. The targets, like if you have him in a keeper league or in a dynasty league, I think he's getting the number 2 corner every week, so that helps. And I think are they putting him in the slot a bit?
No,
too?
they gave him Darius Slay this entire week.
Wow. Wow. So I stand corrected on that.
They let Slay follow him for the entire game.
So
he's doing this against corner ones now.
I want to give him his flowers. Good job. And he's not even doing it with an elite quarterback. Because Zach Wilson was top 5 in fantasy points, but I do want to give him his flowers. So he proved me wrong this week. And the wide receiver duds. Wide receiver 3, Darnell Mooney, 7.7. Wide receiver 51, Chase Claypool, 7.1. Terry McLaurin, I don't even have a number because he only scored 5.2. Same with Tyreek Hill, 4.2. Who's your biggest dud of the week?
I'm going to talk about Tyreek because, the excuse for those Bills players or those Patriots players who all put up ridiculously low points was wind an issue. Tyreek Hill could not get past Denver's defense. He had a couple drops in this game, and I think another ball that led to an interception. This is becoming a big problem with Tyreek Hill. It was kind of the inconsistencies that you saw 2-3 years ago. He's been really good for fantasy this year, but you kind of saw him revert back. I don't think he has this problem again. For the rest of the year, I would like to think not. But if he's dropping you a game like this in your playoffs, you're not going to win. You're not.
Nope. Yeah, I'm a little worried about Tyreek as well. I mean, I'm a Tyreek Hill owner in my dynasty league, so he does worry me a little bit. My 2nd round pick. I'm a little worried about Terry McLaurin too. He's the wide receiver 19 on the season, but looking at his since week 5, 8, 6, 25, 6, 11, 21, 9, 5. There's no consistency there. He's only cracked over 20 twice. His targets are pretty good. He's still getting like 6, 7 targets a game, but the football team just isn't feeding him the way that a wide receiver like him could be fed on other teams. So I feel like he's appearing more in this segment as a dud than as a stud and as a problem. He has a matchup against Philly, tough against wide receivers. 2 matchups against Dallas. We'll see how Trevon Diggs handles him. Then another matchup against Philly. Could be some tough matchups for Terry McLaurin down the road. All right, and on to the tight end. Tight end 1 on the week. Monster game from George Kittle, 39.6 fantasy points. If you had him in a fantasy league like I did in 3, you probably won your week. Tight end 2, Dallas Goedert, 28.5. I said to play him. Tight end 3, Rob Gronkowski, just playing like Gronk from 10 years ago, 21.8. Tight end 4, TJ Hawkinson, 14.9. And tight end 6, Tyler Conklin, 12.6 with Adam Thielen out. Who's your biggest tight end stud of the week, Nick?
It's got to be Gronk. Gronk, you finally saw not Gronk. Sorry, not Gronk. Actually, it was Gronk. Let me talk about 2 real quick. So let me go to Gronk. Gronk's averaging the most points per game for a tight end position. That's above Travis Kelsey, and he has a goose egg in there from getting hurt on the first pass attempt of a game. That's ridiculous. I remember last year a lot of conversation kind of exposing Gronk, saying, Gronk's his all-time tight end. Well, Travis Kelsey is just as old as him, and Travis Kelsey is miles better. Well, when Gronk's out on the field, doesn't look much worse than Kelsey does. It looks pretty good. Looks pretty good football player. He's had the GOAT with this team the whole time. But, I mean, Kelsey's had the most talented quarterback, I think, in many people's eyes for the latter portion of his career. So, I got to give a lot of kudos. And then real quick, the other was George Kittle. George Kittle, he finally top 3 week. Deserved it in these fighting weeks after you had to deal with those injuries and a couple off weeks from him. So, thank you, Kittle.
I want to talk about Tyler Conklin because with Adam Thielen out, Conklin had 12 fantasy points. And Thielen's going to be out on Thursday night, obviously. So he's going to be out, a week or 2 after, too. But Conklin had 9 targets last week. 9 targets, 56 yards for 7 receptions, not even a touchdown. I know he's been a guy that's been a flyer this year, but I think he's a guy you could pick up now and start. We got to see how he does on Thursday night. So, again, that's kind of the elephant in the room here.
He's a good stash play.
I think he's a good stash here for the playoffs, because you don't know when Adam Thielen's going to be back. And the duds of the week: Pat Freiermuth, tight end 17, 7.6 points. Travis Kelsey, tight end 23, 5.7 points. Tight end 26, Foster Moreau, 4.4. We were both wrong on that. And Zach Ertz, only 2 points. No good. Who's your biggest tight end dud of the week?
It's the same exact thing. It's Travis Kelsey. It's the same thing I said with Tyreek. This was not Mahomes did not play his greatest football, but neither did Travis Kelsey or Tyreek Hill. A lot of these teams have figured out how to stop Kansas City. It's that cover 2 defense. And until Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes can get on the same page of checking down to these running backs, going through your normal progressions of first read, second read, third read, check down, they're not going to be able to put up not just fantasy points, the scoring points that you need to win. And I don't blame them for changing it. They're winning games. Their defense is putting stops out there. And if this is how they're going to have to ride to get to the playoffs and get to a Super Bowl where they can compete, you're going to do what you're doing to win. And that's what they've been doing recently. So they're not going to change. They're not going to be the team that beats you 40-30 like they usually were, that always hits the over. They're going to be the under team. That's just what they are. It's what they're doing. So it's extremely concerning if you own any of those top 3 Kansas City players. If you think you're going to ride through the playoffs with them, they're going to continuously deliver. They're not. There's going to be a week in the fantasy playoffs where Tyreek Hill, Mahomes, and Kelsey do not click, and that's the reason you get eliminated from the playoffs. But they're too talented to play them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Foster Moreau is the guy for me. We both set to play him last week. Phenomenal matchup. 4.4 points. Didn't get fed the way that he was the week without Waller earlier in the season. So we did say to pick him up and play him, and we were wrong. We apologize about that. Alrighty, that is a weekly wrap. Let's go to Lock Flop. Lock Flop for week 14. We're telling you one player from each position we think should be locked into your lineups, one player that we think will be flopped. So, Nick, who is your quarterback lock of the week?
My quarterback lock, even though I talked about the struggles, it's Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes has struggled in recent weeks. I'll go through the last few games of his. Since week 7, 9 points, 14, 10, 40, 9, and 12. Not good enough fantasy weeks for the guy who drafted as a QB1. But as I said in those 6 weeks, I said 9, 14, 10, 40, Guess who that 40 was against? The same team he's going up against this week. Go lock in Patrick Mahomes for a big week.
I'm locking in the opposing quarterback. I'm locking in Derek Carr because the Chiefs have given up the fourth most fantasy points to quarterbacks. When he did face the Chiefs a couple weeks ago, he had 18 fantasy points. Carr's also had a couple of weeks where he did crack the top 5. He's sitting right now at quarterback 12 of the year, but I think he could crack the top 10 this week against Kansas City. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. It's going to have to be a shootout for Vegas to win this one. So I think Carr is going to be slinging the ball around a lot. Even if he throws a pick or two, I think he's still going to put up like 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, just enough to get you in that top 10. So if you do need a quarterback this week, I think Carr's a guy that could crack that top 10 for you. Who's your quarterback flop of the week, Nick?
I talked about him a little bit earlier. It's Joe Burrow. I think he's droppable. If you're not in a keeper league, I think you can open the spot. I think he struggles throughout these last few weeks of the season. 4 tough defenses coming up, and in his last 4 games, he has 7 turnovers. Had 20 points last week, but prior to that, nothing cracking 16. And if you're not cracking 16 points in a fantasy game, you're not good enough for a quarterback position start.
For me, it's going to be Tom Brady, who's been the second best fantasy quarterback on the year, and it's probably going to be the MVP. Buffalo is the toughest defense when it comes to fantasy quarterbacks. I know they give a lot of points to Jonathan Taylor and some other guys, and I know how great Brady is, and I know he's played the Bills a billion times, so I'm not saying Brady's going to have a bad week, but I don't think he's going to have a top 5 week. I don't think he's going to be the quarterback that he's been this whole fantasy season. We could see more Leonard Fournette than Tom Brady. So that is why I'm stating Brady's a flop due to his standards, not going to have 2 points, but due to the Tom Brady standards, I think he's a flop this week. Wide receivers, Nick, who is your wide receiver lock of the week?
I think a lot of people are going to be concerned, as we just talked about, but mine's Tyler McLaurin. As good as Trayvon Diggs has been at intercepting the ball, interceptions do not mean you're a great cornerback. Trayvon Diggs has been phenomenal. He's been the reason that Dallas has won a lot of the games that they have. But every single talented receiver has burned Trayvon Diggs at one point this season. I expect nothing less from McLaurin. I think Diggs is going to have to follow him all game, and McLaurin's going to catch a couple big ones on him. Even with those recent struggles, Washington's hot. They're extremely hot, and I think Dallas wins this game, but I think Washington's going to keep passing to stay within it. So I think McLaurin's going to have to burn him. I think he will. I think he's more talented than Trayvon Diggs as a corner, as a lockdown corner, and I think he gives you a big week.
For me, it's going to be Tyler Lockett, the guy that I said on the season was going to be a bit of a flop. The Seahawks are facing the Texans defense that's given up the 7th most points to wide receivers, and I think they've given up more than that. And Lockett, since the bye, has outscored DK Metcalf tremendously. His weeks are 4, 15, 12, and 19, only 1 touchdown in those games. DK's are 5, 7, 2, and 11. Target numbers, Lockett's 8, 5, 5, 8. DK is 8, 8, 4, 8. So DK is actually getting out targeting him, but Lockett's getting more production. So I think Lockett's going to have a big week this week. I think DK could too, but I'm locking Lockett into this week. Who's your flop of the week, Nick, for running for wide receivers?
Mine's Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think a lot of people are going to go ahead and start him after that massive 12-target, 10-catch game. Like I just said, Denver's defense is way too talented. You just saw them lock down Travis Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. Amon-Ra St. Brown, a good, talented rookie wide receiver, a good player, will have a good future in this league. But against that secondary in Denver, there is no shot he gives you the same performance he did this past week.
I'm going Deandre Hopkins because Deandre Hopkins right now is riding off of his name. I think he's like 28 years old, maybe. I know I shouldn't really factor age into this. However, let's look at DeAndre Hopkins here. Let's look at his target numbers. Last few weeks, 2, 2, 9, great number, 9, and 4. 9 was back in week 7. He had the injury, 2 points in that game. Missed 3 weeks, 2 points. Now he's facing Jalen Ramsey. I think he has had a 100-yard game on Jalen Ramsey. So, he had good games. But I still worry about it. I worry about a guy that hasn't gotten a lot of targets. I worry about a guy who was hurt. I worry about a guy that even before the injury, he wasn't playing great. Like, I'm looking at the target numbers aren't great. His fantasy points are 5, 10, 20, 20, 18, 8. So the 20s are good. But he hasn't been the dominant DeAndre Hopkins that we've seen for most of his career. So that's why I'm saying he's going to be a flop this week. Running backs. Your running back lock of the week, Nick.
Mine's Chuba Hubbard. I told you guys, be careful if you're picking him up. Don't expect you to ride him through the playoffs and him to go deliver you a league-winning season because the matchups are tough there. But guess who he's playing? The real fantasy carnival, the Atlanta Falcons. The last time he played them, had 24 rushing attempts for 80 yards and a touchdown. If they're going to give him that same amount of workload against this Atlanta team that's 28th against the run, Chuba Hubbard's locked in for a big week against them.
I'm going to say you got to play your Broncos running backs this week. The Detroit Lions are giving up the 5th most fantasy points to running backs. I hope Javonte Williams gets the bulk of the carries because he had 29 last week. We could see another game with 25-plus fantasy points. We really could. We could see 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he could catch the ball, too. I think he had like 5 receptions or something. We were talking about it on the color cast. I think his touchdown might have been a receiving touchdown, if I remember correctly. Javonte Williams is a bulldozer. I saw a stat. You might have seen it too, Nick. I believe his yards after contact number is better than Marshawn Lynch's best yards after contact number. The guy's a machine. I have him in Dynasty League, and I'm drooling over that. I'm going to keep him in our league, too. Give this man the bulk of the carries, and he's going to be a top 3 running back again this week. Who's your running back dud of the week?
Mine's James Robinson. I'm going to take a look at the 2 versions of James Robinson you've seen this year. Pre-injury and post-injury. Pre-injury, 9 points, 10 points, 25, 20, 22, 20. Got hurt, 5 points that week. Since then, 18, not bad. 12, 12, and 3 with his workload declining ever since the injury. James Robinson, he is not the must-start player that you thought he was, and Tennessee has been really good. I think the first 2 weeks of the playoffs, you're going to have to play him because he's going up against Houston and the Jets, who are terrible against running backs, but this is not the week that I think you should play him.
For me, I'm dudding both of the Browns running backs. They've both been banged up this season, and the last time they played Baltimore, which is 2 weeks ago, it's funny. They had Baltimore at Baltimore, then a bye, and now they're facing Baltimore again. Kareem Hunt, first game back, so give him some slack. Only 2 fantasy points. Now he had the bye, rested up. Nick Chubb, he had played 2 games, sat against New England, played against Detroit, had a great game. Then against the Ravens, only 5.9 fantasy points. The Ravens have also been very tough against the run, giving up the 4th least amount of fantasy points to running backs. Recipe for disaster right there. They want Baker to throw the ball, so why not load up the box with 8? You're not scared of Baker. You're not. Load up the box with 8 and stop the running backs. So I'm fading both Browns running backs this week because of that. Tight end lock, tight end flop, Nick. Do the lock, and then as we always do.
Of course. Gronk, I told you, averaging the most points for per game for tight ends.
Bills have been tough against tight ends. Bills have been tough.
Bills have been good against tight ends. But when has Gronk ever struggled in his career against Buffalo? I don't remember a single.
He will, because Bills Mafia is pulling up this week.
When has Tom Brady struggled against?
He will this week because I said so.
Nope, I'm calling it right now. The Bills fall right out of the playoff picture after this week.
Man, that'd be so disappointing.
Dude, they're the 7 seed right now. They get a loss.
I'm all in on Buffalo.
Especially because Denver is going up against Detroit, and if Denver beats them, the Colts are on bye this week, and if they lose, they're gonna have the same record as the Colts.
You said it on the color cast. The Colts are the team you don't want to face right now.
If the Colts are on bye, if the Bills lose, they faced earlier this season. Guess who won? 41-15. The Colts. The Colts are getting in those playoff spot for them. Yeah. But yeah, Gronk in every game this year, 9 targets every single game, double-digit points except for 2 injuries. That's Gronk's stat line on the season. He's going to see that many targets, and Tom Brady's going to have no problem giving PTSD to those Bills fans, seeing that Brady-Gronk connection again, knock them right out of the playoffs.
No.
I'm telling you.
I love the Bills, though, but I love the Bills.
The Bills are going to sneak in because the rest of their schedule is easy.
But the NFL, we need the Bills in the playoffs, and we need a playoff game in Buffalo. We need it.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
The real New York teams play in New Jersey, and I'm sorry, it's just going to happen.
No, the Bills need to be in the playoffs because we need to see tables broken in January.
Hey, look, I'm a fan of the Bills fans. I love the Bills Mafia, but the Bills team, I'm sorry. For as good as they've been, Did you see the stat about the teams that they faced this year and their record?
What, they've lost to every good team and beat every bad team?
They've lost to every single team that's over 500.
500, yeah.
They are
Yeah.
not the team that they were last year.
No.
It's so clear. And I said it at the start of the year that I didn't think Josh Allen would, do well because I just didn't think he was that quarterback. And he's not proven. He's proven to be it for fantasy, but in the real NFL, no, he is not proving it. I'm sorry, he is not.
For me, it's going to be Dawson Knox. I'm going to speak about it, Bill. 8th. His position rank is 8, and he's missed 2 games. That means he's 8 with the games missed anyway. In his since returning from that injury, 2, 14, 18, and 3 last week against New England. But Tampa Bay has given up the 5th most fantasy points. 6th most fantasy points to tight ends. So I think Josh Allen finds him in the end zone. I think Josh targets him a lot. I think it's a Dawson Knox game, and I'm actually playing him in the league that I do need to win to make the playoffs. All right, who's your tight end flop of the week?
Mine is Kyle Pitts. I'm done trusting him.
Oh,
I'm done. I love Pitts. I love the talent.
You're finally off the Falcons train.
I have to. Look at his last 6 weeks. 3, 9, 10, 6, 5, 9. Not good enough to trust going into the playoffs. I don't care what his projection is. Also, last time he played Carolina, that was the worst game that he played in his career, and he was shadowed by Stephon Gilmore that whole game. They had no problem putting a cornerback on him and shutting him down. He had 2 catches. That was literally the worst game of his NFL career. That was the worst game since his college career. This is the worst game Kyle Pitts has ever played, and it's when you gave him a former defensive player of the year at cornerback. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to get shut down again, and that's not good. Not good enough.
For me, it's TJ Hawkinson. The Broncos have surrendered the 4th least amount of fantasy points to tight ends. Last week, they put Travis Kelsey in the dud category, and TJ Hawkinson's going to be in our dud category come Tuesday. So I would try to pivot off of Hawkinson if you do have a backup like Dawson Knox or maybe Tyler Conklin or something like that if you played him on Thursday. So, all right, we're going to end the show with rapid fire. Start, sit. Give you 1 player from each team, each game. Tell you which one we'd rather play. Seahawks at Houston Texans. I almost went to this game. If I didn't get that stinky dog over there, I would have been at the Texans game. Maybe. Russ is a good boy, though. He was good today. Tyler, he's just bad luck for the Seahawks. Tyler Lockett or Brandon Cooks?
What if I told you that both these teams were in the top half of the league against wide receivers this season? That's ridiculous. Seattle's been horrendous. Their cornerbacks have looked terrible. The Texans are, in my opinion, the worst team in football. They go out there every week without fight. This is ridiculous that these teams have been this good, and it's because they've just been down so bad and bad against the run. I'm going to take Brandon Cooks because I just think he has the more guaranteed workload, but Tyler Lockett should have no problem catching a 60-yard bomb against these guys.
I'm taking Tyler Lockett just because he's in my lock segment. Hollywood Brown or Kareem Hunt? I flopped Kareem Hunt, so I'm taking Hollywood Brown. If you want to say anything else, but I'll give you the floor.
That's a tough one because I think Cleveland's secondary is extremely quick and is built to keep up with Hollywood Brown.
Against Cleveland, he had 13 fantasy points without a touchdown, though.
Yeah, I got to agree with Nick here, though. I'm going to go Hollywood. I just don't trust the Browns.
Wide receiver 15 on the year. Hollywood's had a solid year.
Yeah. He was top 5 for 1 point.
James Robinson. Sorry about that. James Robinson or Julio Jones. If Julio plays, he can come off the IR. So, if not, AJ Brown.
I'll play. Oh no, AJ Brown's on the IR too. It would be Westbrook, Ekine. I'll play Julio over Robinson. I'll play Robinson over Ekine.
Okay. I'll play Robinson too. Travis Kelsey or Darren Waller if Waller plays.
I'll take Kelsey. I don't remember him ever having 2 bad weeks in a row.
The Raiders have given up the most tight end points, the most fantasy points to tight ends. I was too excited to say that. Play Travis. You're playing both of them, but Travis Kelsey might be the tight end 1 on the week. And that's a good point. I don't remember seeing a bad week from Kelsey either. 2 bad weeks, I should say. Elijah Moore or Alvin Kamara?
I'll play Kamara. The Jets are so bad against the run. They just allowed, I think it was 200 plus yards to Gardner Minshew and the other.
And I said to play Miles Sanders. I did say that.
Yeah.
I'll play Kamara too. But the Saints, I'm pretty sure the Saints have they give a lot of points to quarterbacks. They give up a lot of points and wide receivers. The second most points allowed to wide receivers. So, think you could play Elijah Moore in a flex spot.
Me too.
Dalton Schultz or Ricky Seals-Jones.
Give me the Dalton Schultz,
Oh,
baby. You know I'm always
Oh,
locking
boy.
it in, even though I was worried last week.
Oh boy. Both of these teams like middle of the pack against tight ends. I'll take Ricky Seals-Jones because I think he gets more volume. I think without Logan Thomas there, I think Taylor Heineke kind of leans on him. So I'll take Ricky Seals-Jones. Russell Gage or DJ Moore. I hate this game. Like, I'm going to take DJ Moore just because I think he's the better wide receiver, but I don't want to see this game on the red zone at all on Sunday. I have no fantasy players in either of the games. Doesn't matter. I don't even know who I'm taking in my spread. I'll probably take the Panthers because I don't like the Falcons.
I'm playing DJ Moore, but Gage is a sneaky play. Gage of the season, or over the last 3 weeks, once he started cooking, 8 targets, 7 targets, 12 targets. That's the guy I said was my guy for the year. That's been dealing with injury in and out. So I think Gage, if especially if Gilmore's shadowing Kyle Pitts, he should have a fine day.
Javonte Williams or Jamal Williams?
Javonte.
Yeah, I'll say Javonte too. Hopefully he starts. Austin Eckler or Saquon Barkley? Can we just get... I don't even think we got to answer this one.
Yeah, no.
Giants have given up the 4th most points to running backs too, so Eckler's going to get some people in the playoffs. Brandon Ayuk.
Wait, actually, this is the week Eckler can catch Jonathan Taylor in points to become the RB1.
You're right, because Taylor's on.
He's down 40, but with how bad the Giants are, we watched him put up a 40-point week before.
Yeah,
we could see it again.
Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins.
T. Higgins is so hot right now. I'm playing T.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Rob Gronkowski or Dawson Knox, both of our locks. So I think we both know where we're going here.
Yeah, we're both taking our locks.
I didn't even realize it. So we don't know each other's locks before the show, by the way. So that's pretty funny. I do the rapid fire before the show and write out the names, but that's pretty funny. Yep. David Montgomery or Aaron Jones? I think Aaron Jones is back now. They were on bye last week, right? They were on bye last week.
Were they on
bye?
bye?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Aaron Jones is playing. If he's not, then backup running back. What's his name?
AJ Dillon.
Okay. I'll take the Packers running back because the Bears are going to get killed by 40.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And Monday Night Football, James Conner or Darrell Henderson?
That's a good one. I like this one.
This is a big game, too. This is a really big
game. This is going to be a great game.
The last game when Henderson played against Arizona, he had 16 fantasy points, no touchdowns, and did 5 receptions in that one, 89 yards. As for James Conner, he hadn't like heated up yet, but he did have 20 fantasy points, 50 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions. I'm gonna take Henderson because I think the Rams are gonna win this one, and they're gonna run the ball a bit on Arizona. And David Montgomery just had 28 against Arizona too, so I will take Henderson.
Arizona kind of destroyed them earlier in this year, but usually when you're in the same division,
I feel like they're going to split. I feel like
I take the better coach going into the second matchup, and I don't think Kingsbury's that good of a coach.
No.
He's a good coach. Don't get me wrong. He's had a great year, but I think Sean McVay's a better coach.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys, that is our show for this week. If you have any other questions, we're going to be live on Sunday morning, 8:30, something like that. We'll figure it out and let you know. So we'll also post a graphic on Saturday to ask for some questions. So if we didn't answer your start-sit questions to help you out with Week 14, please let us know. Again, some plugs for you guys. Next time you hear from us is Sunday for the live show on our Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. For YouTube and Facebook, Primetime Fantasy Podcast. For Twitter, Primetime FFPod. The shows, again, you can find audio versions on Tuesdays and Fridays, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere where you can find an audio podcast, video and audio version on our YouTube channel. Please support our social media, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Primetime FFPod, YouTube, Facebook, Primetime Fantasy Podcast. And please tune in to the Colorcast app, Sunday Night Football, probably. I haven't confirmed that yet. Should be Bears, Packers, Sunday Night Football. The app called Colorcast. It's free. Download it from the App Store. It's super, super easy to use. We're going to have a direct link posted on our Twitter, or you can text us or DM us personally, and we'll give it to you. It's an audio-only stream, so you could put a headphone in and listen to the game as well. Go in the chat. Talk about anything. We'll answer all your questions. And if you do feel confident enough, step up to the hot seat. We'll put you on. You could It is not family friendly, so you could talk about whatever you want, kinda. You're allowed to curse a bit. Obviously, there's the words that you can't say for obvious reasons that we wouldn't say on any live broadcast. I probably shouldn't say in person. But again, like if you want to drop some F-bombs, if you want to go on a rant, that's okay. It's the Colorcast app. Colorcast, join us. It's going to be a lot of fun Sunday night. It's a big opportunity for us. So, Nick, anything you'd like to say before week 14, last week of the regular season?
Yeah, we're giving you Colorcast. We're giving you a live show beforehand, early in the morning. Make sure you stop there. This is literally going to decide whether half of you make the playoffs and half of you don't. It's a great place. Drop those last minute questions. We're going to give you the best advice we can. I think we've been really good this season. We both call out our bad picks. We both call out our good picks.
We're going 50-50, roughly.
Yeah, exactly. We've been pretty good this year. So make sure you stop by, drop those important questions. We'll help you get into those playoffs.
And it is a guessing game. Like we could say as much as we want. We could look at matchups. But at the end of the day, it really, really is just a guessing game.
At the end of the day, Zach Wilson can go ahead and be a top 5 quarterback against the number 3 defensive quarterbacks. Yeah. He's had a horrendous season.
Yeah.
He's going to win. He's going to win the offensive rookie of the week this week for absolutely no reason over Deontay, which makes sense.
Yeah, which is stupid. Alrighty, guys, that's our show for this week. Talk to you on Sunday. Thank you, guys, and best of luck in week 14.